Alright, hello and welcome back to another video. This is sort of the 2-month check-in for the Mirage character that I'm playing, so the Spark or Second Guardian. I realized there hasn't really been any check-ins for this character since the first one I did at the start of the league. Yeah, my bad, is what it is, but I have been playing. I've been playing pretty much non-stop these past 2 months. I really haven't stopped at all, and I've been working this character ever since. Both investment-wise, obviously it's a lot higher now, but also just like build-wise, I've tweaked and altered so many different things with the character. It's very different now than what it used to be, so I think it'll be interesting to show you what I've been doing and sort of the reasoning behind it, and then also we'll go over sort of all the different gear pieces and all the stuff like that, because, you know, as per usual, like even all the mirror gear and stuff, I self-craft all that. It might be fun to go over all the different pieces and the stories behind them, and yeah, the character is doing really well. It's still really fast. The core of the character is still the same. Really fast mapping character. It's ended up actually morphing into a more specialized character than what I usually sort of build. Usually the characters that I play have been all-rounders pretty much for the past few years even. But this one, it has just been so much fun to map with. I've just been tailoring it more and more to make that mapping experience more fun. So you'll see that when we go over the build as well, that a lot of stuff is tailored toward exclusively mapping. But it's just the thing I really enjoy in this character, so I figured why not do a more specialized sort of thing. Defensively, it's quite good now. That is one of the big changes from the last version of the build. I've been pretty much exclusively farming, full deadly breach with like risk and stuff. So the defenses of the last setup were a little rough for that, but now it's pretty good, and I think I have a good shell going on. So let's get right into it, and I'll show you sort of what's been going on. Alright, so here we are in game. This is the Spark or Second character. This is where we're at with the characters. So I guess we can do the obligatory like numbers check-ins. I don't know. Gold-wise, actually, I haven't gotten much gold this league. I don't know. That was I sort of made a big deal out of that last league. Is farmed up 1 billion gold, which was fun. This league, the first like month of the league, I just spent just farming boxes. As if you stopped by the stream, you probably were aware. Boxes don't drop any gold, so I think that hampered it a bit. But I mean, I'm doing breach now, so the gold amounts are increasing slowly. But it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, if you're curious, playtime, mostly active time. I think maybe 2 or 3 days of AFK time in there. It's okay. But yeah, as per usual, don't take this video as like me trying to show off or anything. I mean, this is just mostly there to give context to how much time was put into the character to give the results that I'll show you. Anyway. So the Spark or Second character, if you haven't watched the last video or don't know what's going on, it's basically as it sounds. We're stacking a bunch of auras. So you can see if I open up my gems here, these are all auras that I have toggled right now, and these are getting scaled by a bunch of introspection jewels. So these are small cluster jewels that give you reservation efficiency, and then ends with an introspection node, which gives you 10% aura effect. So you scale a bunch of aura effects. Aura effect then gives you max res via scaling the aura effect of Purity of Lightning, which gives you max res. So that is how we are reaching 90 auras with scaled Purity of Lightning, and then melting of the Flash jewel. That is a source of Element. Then, of course, scaling damage through a bunch of damage auras like Wrath, Zealotry, and Malevolence. Malevolence, of course, scales duration, which is an aspect of scaling Spark, and this is a Spark build, so duration makes the Spark stay longer, which makes them hit longer, and makes you have more overlaps, which gives you more effective DPS on Spark, so that is a way of doing that. And then also, Aura Effect scales your damage via scaling the level of the Smite gem, so this this is Vol Smite. You can't really see it because this gem is just massive, but yeah, basically Vol Smite is a skill that gives you a buff when you use it that gives you flatlining damage, and this buff counts as an aura, so it's scaled by aura effect. So this gives you a lot of flat with this sort of setup, basically doubling your damage pretty much. You just sheer flat alone. You just need to press that button every 15 seconds or so. Not that bad, but yeah, that's sort of the general core of it. If you want more details on exactly how the basics of the character works, I'm sure I jap about it a lot in the first video. Let's go over sort of the differences, and first things first is the defensive layer. So in the last video, the character was pretty much just using Grace and the 90 auras for a bit of avoidance, and then just having some endurance charges for Fizzmit. And yeah, it was pretty squishy on the Fizz side. Element was fine, but it was what it was. I've sorted some stuff around on that front. So if you look at the character right now, you can see that I have 240,000 armor. So I'm using that armor, firstly, obviously, to get some Fizzmit. The character is actually quite tanky to Fizzmits now. Obviously, this is not a massive amount of armor, but it is definitely sizable enough to do good work against Fizzes. So that's pretty nice. And then also, I have this mod on the shield. This is one of the new mods that was added with the new special Mirage Essence. So this gives you 4% of armor applies to fire, cold, and lightning damage taken from hits if you have blocked recently. So it's sort of a mini transcendence type effect there. Obviously 4% is not a ton, but you can do the math here. It's like about 10,000 armor gets applied to your LE damage hits, which is I think plenty to make that totally worth having on a shield prefix. It's actually pretty decent, a little bit of mitigation there with this amount of armor. So it's pretty nice. Now, how am I getting 240,000 armor? Well, the nice part is obviously we have this belt which I've been using, which is the Excel Impenetrable Shrine Shrine belt, which sort of is the whole thing this character is based around. The Impenetrable Shrine is the important thing here. This is now making full use out of that, whereas on the last version of the character that I showed off, I think I was only basically using the evasion part of the Impenetrable Shrine, alongside the ES, of course. So Impenetrable Shrine, if you're not aware of what it does, is baseline, it gives you 100% increased energy shield, evasion, and armor. And then, of course, that's scaled by your shrine effect and stuff like that. But importantly, this is 3 different calculations. So while that sounds similar to something like, 100% increased global defenses, it's not the same, because global defenses is 1 calculation, whereas the Impenetrable Shrine is 3 different ones, which means that if you do something like take Iron Reflexes here, which converts all your evasion rating to armor, you will benefit from both the percent evasion and then the percent armor, and it'll scale both. And that sort of way, it's basically just, look, miniature armor stacking here, right? It's sort of the same mechanics as using, like, jade and granite flasks with the armor stacking. So that is how we're getting to this amount with, 240,000 alongside using Grace and Determination now, which I'm doing right here. The tree looks very different now. So I used to path through this iron area, right, and get a Milton Faith jewel with Unnatural in here, and that gave you a bunch of war effect and reduced skill calls and stuff like that. But yeah, I've dropped that entirely now in order to facilitate pathing down to Iron Reflexes in order to take this. So basically just pathing around the edge here, and obviously since I'm no longer going through the sign area, we can't really use Milton Faith very well, because Milton Faith as a jewel, with how it works with the devotion, you kind of just want a bunch of things spec'd in its vicinity. So that's why it's such a good spot here in the sign area, because obviously you get the unnatural as well in order to get a bunch of devotion. It's not really good on this type of tree, because like if you look at all the jewel sockets, like it would at most reach like 4 or 5 allocated nodes, so like the amount of devotion would be really bad, and it just isn't really feasible, unfortunately. So instead we're using the Hubris. I was using this before a little bit on this character. I'm not sure if I did in the video still, but yeah, we're using an Elegant Hubris with Caspiro, so we're actually using Supreme Ostentation now, which is a pretty big difference from the last setup. And obviously this seed is actually quite nice, 370 20. It's a classic aura seed here, because it gives you 12 12 12 aura effect on these nodes here, so just 3 1-pointers of aura effect. It's really nice. It's actually a little less efficient, so pathing wise, you obviously have 2 choices of pathing. If you want to go to the outside edge here on Templar, you can either go up here and then go through there, or you can go down here and go through here. So this is a little bit less efficient. I believe this is using 1 extra point versus going up top here, but because we are getting this really good Elegant Hubris seed with these 3 aura effect nodes, it's plenty worth it. I've checked pretty much all the other different sorts of this, and there just really isn't a matching seed for Elegant Hubrises that are as good as this one, unfortunately. You could path up here, take the Hubris in there, and then get the Supreme Ostentation node right there. And then you could use something like an Impossible Escape of Mind Over Matter in order to spec a bunch of points in the Hubris. That's something that people do on other builds. There just isn't really a good enough seed on that. Like, there's basically no other, as I could see at least, triple aura effect seed like that. There just wasn't one up here. I even checked over there. There just kind of wasn't any, unfortunately, as much as I'd like there to be. So that's what we're doing there. Supreme Ostentation, really big, because you get to ignore all attribute requirements, of course. So obviously, you don't get any bonuses, but this is something that I should probably have swapped to earlier, because I realized when building the character, one of the things, so, this character always had the setup of, voices into introspection jewels, right? That was always the core. But before, I had all these different attribute requirements. Like, you needed like 156 strength or whatever for empower, and you needed this and that. And then basically, it was really straining the introspection jewels, because that was how I was solving all the different attribute requirements. When building the character originally, I also put a bunch of like tier 1 int suffixes on gear, because that was just, I was just used to doing that on ES characters, because it was just efficient. You got some stats and you got some ES from it. So it was just like a good suffix to put on a gear. However, after the int nerfs, I just realized whenever I was popping my items, I just realized how little int actually gave. So I ended up just dropping in from all of the items, piece by piece. You might have seen that in the boot crafting video, for example. Like, I was gonna go for a tier 1 int as a suffix on that, but then I realized when popping it that tier 1 int it really doesn't do much. So I ended up just, like, when making all this different gear, I just ended up dropping int from it entirely. So I basically just didn't have any ints. So, just taking this node now basically just gives you no downside and just gives you all upside, because, yeah, no longer do you need to get attributes on your, introspection jewels. Now we can just get full resists on there. So you can see that I'm just getting a resist on each one. This is how I'm capping my resist fully. So I'm even getting chaos res on there. It's really quite efficient compared to before. So you can see right now on the character, I'm actually overcapped by quite a bit on cold and lightning, and then not so much on fire. Fire's a little tight. I'm getting some tattoos in order to fit the fire res in, but since I'm blue altering, this is what I'm doing. I could use maybe another 10 or 20 if I want to be fully alter immune, but basically this is enough to click any other res downside alters in blue alter maps and still be comfortable. Like, maybe you drop a little bit below on cold, but it's not even that big of a deal. Even if you do, Still plenty tanky. So yeah, very nice amount of resist here. Makes blue altars very comfy compared to before, where I was like, 3 or 4 res over each one. Like, it was so tight. But yeah, I think this setup's really nice. Supreme Ostentation, very handy for that. Also lets us use things like this tailing orb on the chest piece for the 15% increased explicit defense modifier magnitudes. This obviously has 200% increased attribute requirements on it, which makes it pretty hard. It made it impossible to have on the old version of the character, but now we can use that. So there's a bit of more ES in there. You can also do stuff like, putting clips on your character. So clips a new support gem that gives, it's basically like an empower and align all in one. You can fit that in on this character. It's pretty good on the chest piece here. You can basically move Malevolence up to the helmet and then drop it in there and gives you a bit of reservation and some nice bit of armor. Right now I end up dropping it, but I have a version of this character where I was using that, so that was pretty good. And then of course I am tattooing the entire outside of the tree here, all the different nodes we're tattooing for a bunch of different things. So obviously the int nodes get turned into mostly ES nodes. You have one Caster's node in there, just cap me, and then some crit immunity. So this character is now fully crit immune, which is kind of nice. I'm getting 60% from this Watcher's Eye, and then getting the rest from the tattoos. So that's very handy. A lot of the boxes are just checked now. So we have fully crit immune. Obviously, Physmit is quite good with 240k armor, and still AM immune, even though I did drop Purity of Elements in order to fit in Determined Grace. So no longer have that, which also means that that was the main source of res before, and this is one of the things that having res on all these different clusters lets us do is lets us drop Purity of Elements and instead get Determined Grace. Of course, this leaves the ailment immunity issue on the table, and I'm getting that right now through Storm Shroud. So we're just doing the old classic Storm Shroud with Shock Avoid. I'm getting Shock Avoid through the boots, so I recrafted the boots. So instead of the element effects suffix there at the bottom, we are now getting the essence mod, Avoid Being Shocked. So I made these boots again. Pretty cool, actually. Pretty cool craft that you can even do this. I mean, the double elevated suffix with an essence mod, it's kind of neat, isn't it? But yeah, so that we have those, so that's 60%, and then I'm getting the rest from an Abyss Jewel. This Abyss Jewel is a little bit, it's one of the things that I think are a little bit clunky feeling right now, but basically it solves 2 issues, right? I need both phasing and I need Shock Avoid somewhere. So Shock Avoid, there are different sources of it that you can get that I might work on a little bit. Basically, there's the main way. I mean, first of all, you can get it on a hubris, right? There's one of the hubris notables is 80% Shock Avoid. This seed unfortunately doesn't have it. It'd be quite handy if the seed had one of them randomly be it, but yeah, unfortunately none of these nodes are Shock Avoid. There's a Chill Avoid, which is almost as good, but yeah, not quite. You can also get, importantly, there's a small cluster notable, Insulated, I believe, that gives you 1 max lightning res, and then also gives you 30, I think, Shock Avoid. You can like use 2 of those maybe, because obviously you can change the notables now to other enchants by using the refracting fogs. This is something I've been playing around with, doing that. That might be an angle eventually in order to drop this Jewel Socket, because Jewel Sockets are very prevent on this character. If you're not noticing, by the way, this character is extremely tight. Popping this character has been like one of the toughest things I've done in POE, in a long time. This is so tight. It basically feels like, like when you're packing a suitcase to go somewhere and you've packed everything in, you've squeezed everything in the best you could, and it's like bursting at the seams, but you finally got the zipper out, right? Finally closed it for the first time. And then you realize you forgot to put something else in. So in order to put that in and actually make it fit, you have to like open it up. So you have to reopen the zipper. Everything bursts out. Then you have to like re-put everything in and like fold it slightly differently, and then try and like arrange it differently enough to where you can squeeze 2 or more things in there again, and then tie it all back up. That's sort of what it feels like popping this character all the time. It's a lot of it's a lot of work, but it's been very fun in that way as well. But it's like, the reservation is extremely tight. You can see I have 48 unreserved mana, right? And this is my skill costs 45, so it's like right on the edge. I need literally every point of reservation that I can get. And you can see I have it like on every single jewel. I have this corrupted for reservation, this medium cluster. I have, that one doesn't have it. I could actually get on there if I really wanted to invest, but like all the different unique jewels are corrupted for reservation. It's like pretty wild. The socket pressure is crazy because of course I'm using all these different auras. So it kind of can't drop any sockets, and whenever I need to put something new in, it's like really tough because you have to move everything else around, and that then affects the reservation, and then the mana cost comes into play because mana concerns are a real thing on this character. And yeah, basically every single little change in this character spirals into like a 3-hour popping session, which I quite enjoy, but it has been pretty intense. Oh, and also something I should mention, the only way I was able to fit all these R's in, because obviously we have a lot of socket pressure, is I actually got this thing. So this is a Corrupted Colonist Touch, which gives you a level 23 Zealotry. So first of all, Normally, corrupted implicits on Colonize Touch don't do anything because Colonize Touch just mirrors the opposite ring, right? So it copies over all the implicits. So basically, none of the implicits work. But the only ones that do work are the ones that grant you aura skills. Maybe some of the curse skills also work. I haven't tried those, but I know the auras do work for some reason. So when you get a Colonize Touch with one of these corruptions that give you an aura, you actually can select that aura and it's just fine. So that is one of the only ones that actually do work. So this basically gives you a free socket, which is very powerful on this character where sockets are so premium. So you can see that. I mean, I obviously have, there it is, Seltry. So yeah, it does work. The problem is these are very, very rare. So you might think you can just corrupt these, right? No, this is a mirrored item. So they drop mirrored, which means you cannot vol them. So there's no way of voling a Colonize Touch ever if you have one. The only way I believe you can get corrupted Colonize Touches is with Betrayal. There's a thing there, I believe. If you do something, there's like an orb that you can corrupt anything, I believe. That one can do it. And also, you can get it from Vol Temple boxes, which just drop things corrupted. And you can also get it from like div cards that drop like, you know, corrupted uniques, whatever. If they have rings in them, they can also drop them. It's very rare basically because, you know, Colonize Touch, of course, are tier 0. So whenever you look on trade and you try and find corrupted Colonize Touches, they're probably very, very few going to be listed because it's just such a rare thing. I had a live search going for one of these for basically the entire league for like so long, and this finally popped up like a week or two ago. I yoked it immediately. I actually have two, so I have a Wrath one and a Zeldry one. You can use either one. Zeldry is a little bit better to get corrupted onto ring because obviously when you actually have the gem socket, it gets affected by all the different you know, plus skill gem things like from the amulet and stuff. And Zeldry scales a little bit worse than Wrath does with gem levels for this character. So you gain like 1% more damage by having Zeldry over Wrath, but it doesn't really matter. You can use whichever one with the ring corruption. But yeah, this is like finding this unlocked a lot on this character because it just gave you a free gem socket. So that was a big find. Really happy this finally popped up. But yeah, I had to search for so long. But yeah, so that is defensively what we're doing. You might also notice that I'm using Osin. So this is the third ringer now. I used to do Death Rush, I believe. I think I was using that in the last video. That was the general thing there, using Death Rush for the adrenaline. It's really good. I actually kind of miss it because it's a lot of speed and some really nice damage. I have now switched over to Original Sin. So actually the old setup, which I don't think I actually did in the last video, this is something I transitioned after the video and ended up just being a lot better, was to do Unholy Trinity. So you do Unholy Trinity as the support gem instead of this inspiration here. And then you use a Foulborn Blue Nightmare somewhere, which will give you a little bit of lightning converted to chaos. You basically only need one lightning tattoo in there, and it'll give you enough to fully proc Unholy Trinity. Unholy Trinity is like really powerful. It's like triple damage or something. It's like an absurd support gem when you're supporting it. So that was a really good set of damage when you're using the Death Rush. Because obviously that gives you the ignore res as well as the more damage from the gem itself, so you no longer had to Forbidden Flesh and Flame the Inquisitor node for you know, res pen. So that was really efficient. That's really good. I think if I wasn't doing Osin, I would still do the Unholy Trinity setup. Problem with that setup is you can't run Inspiration because of course the support gems for Spark, right? You need to imbue Spark with Pinpoint, right? Or, you know, just have it linked or whatever. And then you need Overloaded Intensity. So those two are locked. You can't, they're too good. You just can't get rid of those. And then you need Spell Echo. Again, it's too good. It's like crazy. These support gems are so efficient. So these three are always locked, and then the imbue is also locked. So that means you only have one free flex slot for your support gem. So this is where Unholy Trinity would go. The problem is Unholy Trinity makes your skill cost a lot of mana. So you really need to solve that. Solving that is kind of tricky on that setup, but it is doable. But it is a lot harder now when I'm not pathing through the sign area. So when you're pathing through the sign area, first of all, you can get mana cost reduction on the Milton Faith, which I used to have. And then also there are these mana reduction nodes here, which I invested into. So that was the way of solving it. But yeah, the nice part about doing Osin for the res shred or whatever. So this obviously converts all your LA damage to chaos damage, and then nearby enemies chaos res is 0. So you get the same sort of you know, ignore enemy res thing from Unholy Trinity and from the Inquisitor node. The nice part about this is it frees things up because obviously now you no longer want to run Unholy Trinity because Unholy Trinity, you know, it shares the same space there. They both make you ignore res, so there's no point doing both. There's like a more damage component to Unholy Trinity, but it's just not really worth it at that point if you're only getting that portion of it. Then it's just like a fine gem, but yeah. So with Osin, we can swap that out, and you can put Inspiration instead, which is nice because the character isn't fully crit capped. So the crit portion of this matters, and then you get the really nice low mana cost as well. And then the other way I'm solving mana is I've recrafted this ring a little bit. This now has tier 1 reflected mana regen. This is really nice, especially since it gets reflected by the Colonize Touch, of course. This is really powerful alongside Clarity. So Clarity, I just have a level, what, like a level 3 Clarity here or something, which actually I probably should de-level a bit. I don't think I need this at level 3, but yeah, basically just a level 1 clarity gives you enough flat to where all this different percents just scales it really high, and you really don't need anything else to solve your mana regen. It's kind of nice, kind of efficient. So yeah, we're doing OSIN, we're converting everything to chaos. This also makes you reflect immune, which is very nice. And yeah, of course, there's the thing of like, this is nearby, so it's not, you know, screen wide or whatever, but it is pretty big. It's the same radius as a Dorionis prototype. I think it's plenty good when you're running around, and it feels fine to play with. I think it's good. One of the main benefits of doing Original Sin, of course, is that you get access to a Wither, which is a very powerful debuff. The way this character gets Wither is via this note right here, this Overwhelming Malice. I imagine this is how most people get Wither these days. If you're doing crit, it's very efficient. This gives you 10% chance on crit to gain Unholy Might, which is a buff that gives you 100% Fizz converted to Chaos, and also gives you 25% chance to apply Wither on hit. Spark hits enemies so often that this is basically just reliable, 15 Wither stacks constantly. It's very good. And the Fizz to Chaos is pretty nice, actually, because it converts the remaining unconverted bit of your explosions into Chaos, so you still get that. And because of, conversion chaining and the conversion orders, you're still getting benefits of the lightning damage with the lightning conversion, because lightning conversion happens before Chaos conversion, if you look at the orders of conversions. So, yeah, you're still getting benefit out of all the different lightning damage and stuff. There's not much downside. One more thing that I've been doing that has really been very fun on this character is this thing. So these file point inspired learnings, these are a little wacky. So unlike normal inspired learnings, where it's like a really small radius and you have to like spec four notables inside of the radius, right, in order to activate it, the Falcon works a little differently. So this works if you have no notables in the radius. Weirdly enough, this jewel can be placed in cluster jewels. Wasn't aware of this. This was the case last league as well. But yeah, you can place Falborn inspired learnings into cluster jewels, and of course then, you know, the radius doesn't apply and there are no notables inside, so they just work. So yeah, it's a little wacky, but yeah, it works putting these in cluster jewels, which is actually really sick. I imagine this is not staying for another league. I don't know. I'd be very surprised, but it makes this item really cool, because you can see right now, I actually have 2 of them in, and it basically just gives you like this mini headhunter, like 2 inspired learnings. It's pretty good. Like you're running on most of the maps with like 30 headhunter stacks. When you don't have to invest in anything but a jewel socket in order to get an inspired learning, that jewel is really good, as it turns out. Like I even kind of want to put 3 in here, but I can't really drop any other jewels, unfortunately. This is one of the things that also makes mapping on this character so much more fun, because now you get the benefit of having both the speed from the Shrine Belt and all that cool stuff, and then you'll also get headhunter buffs on top of that. And yeah, the character just kind of pops off on maps with all this stuff. It's pretty fun. So yeah, that is something that, you know, hey, if you're playing a mapping character this league and you have some jewel sockets left over, let me recommend using them to put some inspired learnings in cluster jewels, because man, it's fun. But yeah, that's one of the things I started doing as well. Real big fan of that. And then yeah, since I mentioned I'm using this mod with the armor applies to fire call 9 damage take from hits if you block recently. Obviously, we need blocks somewhere. I've done different tries on this with different amounts of investment, so you can go full block investment, and that would feel probably pretty good. I decided not to do that. I just don't think it's really necessary. I have tried it out. It is nice. You feel very tanky, but I basically right now just have enough block to where this is consistently up while mapping, which basically means I just have the 25 base block from this, and I have a few more from tattoos. I think I only have like 29% or something, 28% attack block. I've tried this out. This is plenty enough for it to be fully up while mapping. Obviously, if you need this up single target or something, this is not reliable at all, and you'd want to more fully invest. There was a bit where I was running Tempest Shield for the extra spell block. I could do kind of one spell block somewhere. Something I've been working on is grabbing this node. Even like a little bit of spell block would be really nice. I've been trying to grab this caster node here. This gives you 8 spell blocks, some random spell damage, and also gives you access to caster mastery. Caster mastery is actually really powerful when you're using intensity, because you can get the spells which gain intensity, have +1 to max intensity. This is like 11% more damage or something on a mastery. I want to try and get this somewhere because it's really efficient. It's like these really good damage nodes, and you get the little bit of spell block, but it's just so hard to fit in. It's literally one passive off being able to fit in, because you know, I can shuffle a bunch of stuff around, drop that node, drop this node, and basically I can spec 3 of these, and then the 4th one I just don't have a passive point for. And I don't know how to efficiently get that, but that might be a way of getting a little bit of spell block just to make it a little bit even more reliable. But honestly, from my testing and just seeing how many hits get blocked, 28 attack block is plenty to keep this up while mapping and to have it feel really good. So right now I'm just doing that, but maybe at another point I can fit in Tempest Shield on the setup. Basically, you would drop this precision here, and you'd move some gems around and then fit that in on the mana, and it is doable. I was running that for a bit, so I might move back to that, but for now I think this is pretty good. And then, yeah, of course, as I mentioned, I guess I didn't have this in the last video, but yeah, instead of doing double Nebulous right now, I am doing Nebulous and Shield. So this is a shield that I made. I'll go over it more in the gear section, but yeah, we're doing Shield right now. It's basically, it's a little bit less damage than double Nebulous, but you get all these different nice benefits. It's actually less, it's pretty similar in damage, honestly, just because of the different cool things you get here. You get a lot of spell quick, you get % increased lightning damage, which is really good. Then, importantly, you get +3 max lightning res, which really frees up a lot of investment elsewhere. So I think on the last setup even I might have used like regular Viridian Jewel or something in order to get max res. I kind of forget. It's been a while, but yeah, it's just really efficient getting in on shields. I'm actually quite a big fan of the shield setup, especially with the Transcendence mod on there. I think it's pretty good. But yeah, you might notice also that I'm getting a bunch of lightning damage from places. So yeah, this is something I've changed. So I've had multiple versions of this shield. I had a version of this with the spell damage. This was before I did Transcendence, but I mean, we can look. I believe this is my old shield, so that you can see there's basically very similar mods on there, except that I have Tion, Runic on there, which is Tion spell damage. Functionally, for the swag damage, is basically the same, right? But the important thing is, since the ranges are the same, lightning damage is just better because it scales to explosions. So that is another change I made on this character. Focus more on making the explosions actually good, and that's something I didn't really think about on the initial setup of this, because again, I haven't really done a lot of explosion stuff on the characters before, so I wasn't really super experienced. But obviously, explosions deal fizz damage, right? So they have a chance of dealing a 10th of their max life as fizz damage. So this character doesn't really scale fizz in any way, so they wouldn't do that much damage, honestly. But now I'm getting a conversion on it, so I'm converting 25% of the fizz to lightning through the gloves. And then I have this Watch Eye, which converts another 39. So, I'm converting like 64% or whatever of my fizz to lightning, which is really good because those explosions now, with that amount of conversion, the lightning damage from this, and I also have T1 lightning damage reflected on this ring, which is another 110, which obviously gets doubled, so that's 220. So that's a lot of just generic lightning damage on top of the, 450% from the Nebulous. The explosions actually hit quite hard. So it actually feels quite good. It's very noticeable getting the conversion on there. I definitely didn't respect that enough when doing the character initially, but it feels really good now. You get these really nice chains of explosions going everywhere. And yeah, on the top of explosions, I am rocking Herald of Ash. I don't know if this actually does much on its own. I mean, I'm sure it probably, when you got all the buffs up and stuff, you probably do enough hits to where this probably does a little bit, but honestly, I'm not gonna lie, it's mostly there for the MTX. Like, it just, I've kept trying to drop it, because like, whenever I see what I can gain by dropping it, like, you can just put another really nice aura in there that actually does things, and it's like, oh, you look at the pop numbers, and they look really nice. But I just, whenever I drop it, I just end up putting it back. Like, the MTX is so nice on Herald of Ash. It just makes mapping so much more fun. And hey, this is a mapping character, so yeah, we're doing Herald of Ash stuff. As for other gem changes, still doing the speed setup with the automation in the boots. I have changed this around a little bit. So I believe in the last setup I used Phase Run plus a Withering Step in automation in order to give a bunch of move speed. This is good. The problem with that setup is that, which I noticed while actually mapping, is that both those buffs, the Withering Step buff and the phase run buff, are buffs that drop when you use a skill. And when you're actually mapping on this character, like, you're running around like this and you tap your spark like this every once in a while. Like, it's not like we're doing BV or anything where you can just like leave it up for a while. You actually do need to cast your spell on spark. So what I noticed was that, while actually playing the character in maps, those buffs just really weren't up. They were up while moving between packs and whatever, and you were really fast then, but while actually attacking and stuff and while actually mapping, they just weren't really up enough. So we swapped that around a little bit. So now I'm using Smoke Mine. So this is a mine that you throw, and then when it detonates, you teleport to it, and you get a move speed buff, or a couple seconds or whatever, and that gives you a lot of move speed. So you can see the buff gives you 55% increased move speed. Of course, we have about 100% accuracy speed on this character, so it gets doubled, so you get 100 and something % move speed from this buff. So it's really good, actually, and also scales really well with quality. So if you want to scale your quality on this, it's really nice to have getting a bunch of move speed. Ideal setup of this would actually be having like an Awaken Enhanced into this thing, but I just can't fit it in right now. I used to have that, but I ended up dropping it because I still want Immortal Call in there. But Immortal Call is just really good as a guard skill. I was dropping this for a little bit and just didn't have a guard skill at all, and then you put Enhance in here and you gain like another like 80% move speed, and it feels pretty good. But I just realized, I don't know, Immortal Call is just kind of too good to give up on. So yeah, we still have that. That is the orb you're seeing above me pop there. That's the Immortal Call being automated. And of course, you have Detonate Mines in here. It's on automation, so basically whenever you cast Smoke Mine, it automatically triggers it and then gives you the move speed buff. And the move speed buff gets affected by Runecraft of the Warped, which is still something this character uses. So it's kind of interesting actually using Immortal Call as the guard skill rather than Molten Shell, because obviously this character now has a lot of armor, so Molten Shell will be capped out. You get full value of it. I still think Immortal Call is just better. Immortal Call is just really powerful of a guard skill skill, especially since, from what I hear, I haven't tested this myself, but I've been told this by multiple people, that Immortal Call is apparently bugged to where with min charges, apparently it counts as eating min charges for the fizz reduction, even though it shouldn't. It shouldn't be able to eat those. So you're still getting even better buff if you have some min charges, and this is a character with min charges. Charge-wise, I actually dropped a lot of charges, so I'm no longer using power charges at all in order to get crit. This is not really a choice. It's just because I hit this reflection on the ring. I didn't really craft this properly. I should have just had crafted min charge on there, so it doesn't have the gain part on there. But yeah, obviously this ring reflection hit and has lose power charge on kill, and this gets reflected, so I have a 22% chance to lose power charge on kill. This basically means that I can't really get power charges ever, because it's just too high of a percent chance. Then I have 2 minimum minus as well, so I can't really get min power charges very easily either. So I just end up dropping power charges. We're getting a crit elsewhere. It's not that big of a deal. Then I also end up just dropping all other charge generation just entirely because it was just kind of awkward. You know, it wasn't really worth the investment. Like I used to have an Enduring Composure, a small cluster, right, where you replace an introspection with that node. That worked, but it's just a big cost, and I really just didn't feel it was worth it. So now I'm getting 2 min Frenzy and 2 min Endurance from the shield. So obviously this has the 2 min Frenzy and Endurance on the implicit. We'll go over this more in the gear section. But yeah, that is where those come from, that I'm not using power charges at all. But yeah, enough yapping about the character updates. Let's go over all the gear and stuff. I'm sure this is some of the more fun stuff to look at. I figured I'd just go over piece by piece, and we'll just sort of go through, I don't know, how the items came to be. So first of all, I think I had these in the last video. These are Spark Gloves. This is like the first mirror item we made this league. Some real trouble doing this. These were quite annoying to make. The crafting process of making these gloves has been the same for leagues now, for many leagues, but it gets hard when you get to the prefixes because you have to elevate it, and then after you've elevated, you need to do a bunch of unveils. So you need to first unlock, unveil, have it not delete the elevated faster proj, and then you need to unveil the right mod, which is not even close to guaranteed. This was really pain. I'm sure this would have been a fun little bit in the video. I don't know if it's going to happen in the video or not, but I don't remember the full numbers on this, but obviously when you are locking for the unveil on the mirror gloves, it's a 50-50, right? Because you can either delete the crafted mod or delete the faster proj, so you have to win that 50-50. At this level of investment, you would lock that. I believe, if I remember correctly, when we made this, I think I missed like 8 50-50s in a row, so 8 locks just deleted, and then it hit the unveil for the right slot, and then I missed that. Then I think I missed another 9 50-50s in a row after that. So it was like, it was like 15-1 misses on coin flips. It was a wild process to making these gloves, but yeah, this was the first big item we made for the character this league. That was very fun. But yeah, it's just standard Spark Gloves with faster proj. I didn't end up doing slower proj gloves. I think slower proj gloves are kind of just bad for Spark in general. They're not super awful. There are Spark sims out there. Basically, slower proj gloves, if you're unaware, there's a prefix influence mod that gives you Soul Proj as a support gem as well. Soul Proj has a more damage multiplier to it, so it's pretty good in that way, but also gives you less proj speed, which of course proj speed is a factor to scale your damage to Spark, so that is a downside. However, generally you do get a little bit of output out of it. It's enough to maybe compensate for the proj speed. In some cases, the way Spark works is a little finicky. Basically, that mod is better on Spark Gloves in arenas where Spark is bad already. So for fights like Cyrus or Exarch or whatever, where Spark is going to be really terrible, then the slower proj gloves actually give you a little bit more output. But in areas where Spark is okay to good, Maven fights or just general maps with walls, it's going to be quite a bit worse because the reduced proj speed is just bad. It gives you less chance of getting the max hit count, the one hit every 0.1 seconds or whatever the Spark cooldown is. Using slow proj gloves, the way I see it is, it's kind of this weird thing where you're kind of just making the character average at everything rather than really good at one thing and then not so good at another. Personally, I prefer having it, be really good at one thing and then not so good at the other. I think that's just nicer. Also, more proj speed just feels better when actually playing. So, yeah. And then for the helmet, so right now I'm using a Foulborn Gull. I actually didn't realize for the longest time there even was a Foulborn Gull, but yeah, this is actually really nice. So the Foulborn Gull gives you max life converted to ES. And obviously that can get scaled up by Volatile Vol Orbs. You can see I have a pretty well rolled one here. This has almost max volatile on the shrine buffs and also on the Foulborn unique mod there. It's quite nice. It gives you another like 1200 energy shield or something on my character, I think. So it's pretty good. Not too much to say there. Gulls are just really good this league if you're doing Shrine Belt. I guess it's pretty much a given. If you have a Shrine Belt on, you're probably using the Gull. It's just too efficient of a slot. Then we have the chest piece. So this is a whole thing. I imagine most of you probably watched that crafting video. If you didn't watch it, I would recommend it. I think this is a very, very cool item. This has the Grasp Female mod for the Chaos does not bypass energy shield, and then also has 3 elevated influence modifiers. So it's one of those items that it's pretty hard to imagine how it's even made. But yeah, it's a cool crafting process. I would recommend checking that video out. I'm really happy with this chest piece. It's so cool. I have changed a little bit since that video, so I did end up slamming a 6th mod on there. I ended up just going for a regular tier 1 resist. It's pretty good, helps you to resist cap. I was gonna go for chaos res, which would have been cool, but it's very low weighting, and I don't know, I just needed a res eventually, so I figured just go and slam that. It was really easy because we had a bunch of strands left over from the craft, so hitting a tier 1 resist when you have some strands on your item is just so easy. And then for the boots, obviously there was a boot craft video this league of a very similar pair of boots to this. I did recraft it because the other boots we made that was like quad elevated, of course, had increased non-damage ailment effect as the last suffix, which is a very, very powerful mod. However, when you're doing Osin, obviously you can't shock anymore because you no longer do any lightning damage. So the ailment effect isn't actually useful at all. It just wouldn't do anything. So end up swapping that out for one with the Essence mod, as I mentioned before, for the chance to avoid being shocked in order to support the Storm Shroud for ailment immunity. I do think ailment immunity is important on the character. I wouldn't drop it. I thought about that for a little bit, but no, I just don't think it's worth getting that on here. If you're curious how that's made, so obviously this is another item that looks kind of crazy. Basically what you need to do is you need to recom Onslaught Tailwind boots with chance to avoid being shock essence. So you do it pre-elevation, so you can't awaken all the 2 elevates. It's sort of similar actually to how you set up the chest craft initially. You get a pair of boots with strands on them with Tailwind and Onslaught, so you awaken orb them together until they don't use much strands, and then you have those as the only suffixes. And then you get another pair of boots with the Essence mod, and then 3 non-native suffixes, and you just smash those together into the recombinator until they hit. And then you lock suffixes, and then you like reforge influence or reforge crit or whatever on the boots in order to get an influence mod on the prefixes, and then you lock elevates each and every suffix. So it's a little finicky, but it is doable, and that is how these were crafted. Currently doing the avoid being chilled move speed. I might redo that. There isn't really much better options though, because with this setup, since I don't really have any real avoidance in this character, since obviously we no longer have an evasion, so it's just all armor. Most things are hitting me, so the extra move speed while not being hit recently would really not be active very often. So that's why I really didn't bother too much about getting exactly that move speed. But at some point I might annul these boots and go again, because you can see that I actually do have a lot of strands left. Somehow I hit the last slam on this without using like any strands, so I might end up doing an annul and trying to go for different move speed. Eventually, actually, I would like to have elusive, I think, on this as a prefix instead of the ES, because that would just give me more move speed. I don't have a source of elusive right now, which is a little bit sad, but it's just really hard to get on there. This slam is like 1 in 100 locks or something, which with fallible currents, I guess it would be like 1 in 50 or something, but that's a lot of locks. So yeah, it's one of those things that really would only happen if you hit it accidentally while going for the move speed. So that's why I might end up trying to annul this and redoing the move speed, because it gives you more tries at lucking out. That might be fun, something I might do eventually, but yeah, for now I'm happy with these. These are very good. Obviously, we're getting a pierce there. Something I noticed while playing this league is that if you're doing a bunch of really juiced breach, getting the elevated pierce actually it's pretty important. Like, it's noticeable going for 2 to 5. Usually, you don't really need more than 2 pierce on Swark ever. But this league, with how dense breaches are, like there's so many monsters, you actually kind of need more pierce, which I was surprised by. And then yeah, this is the reflected ring. Obviously, the last one had int on it, which I no longer need in characters, so that is a suffix that was freed up. And I used that in order to get mana regen on there, and then also getting lightning damage and crit multi, of course, very good. This is like just shy of 2 times multi, I think. Yeah, I think it's very, very close to 2 times. Obviously, it was actually 2 times. The min charges would be up to 3. But yeah, it's quite a good multiplier. Pretty happy with this one. As for the amulet, now this is the big one. This is I hit this myself. This is one of the luckier hits I think I've had ever. Maybe this is a crazy amulet. So this is a +8 amulet with reflected tier 1 multi, so or reflected essence multi rather. And the multiplier is like almost maxed. I don't know if this is actually 2.1, but it's like 2 point something. It's pretty crazy 187 multi on a +8. I was doing this, so locks went up a lot. They went from like 100 div to like 200 or so, and they've stayed there since. So with how cheap Ice Jeweler is, it's actually not really worth locking these reflections anymore. You just basically recraft them each time. So I spent like 2 days just mindlessly crafting these over and over again and then slamming them with the reflections. And eventually I hit this at the end. It's actually not that bad of a craft. You do recoms for these and it's not that bad. You can actually resell all of them, even the misses. But yeah, I just did that over and over again and I hit this. I think I maybe had like 50 tries or something. I didn't really count, but I would guess maybe it's something like that. Hitting this is a lot harder than that, so I got very lucky. I think hitting a 3 positive with this multiplier, it's like a 1 in 250 or something, I think, from the numbers I've seen. Yeah, it's crazy. I got very lucky. But yeah, it's a crazy amulet. Sometimes lucky. Still using the same nebulas as I did ages ago. This actually might not have been... Did I have this in the video? I forget if I had this in the last video, but yeah, I've had the same one for ages. Yeah, Nibble's good. Eventually I would like a 3-mode one instead of that strength, but yeah, it's very hard to find these, so maybe eventually I'll upgrade this to something else, but yeah, so far so good. This has, I think that's tier 1 spell damage. It's close to it at least. You could theoretically drop the explode from this, honestly. You could drop explode and just get more damage on here, and it'd be, you do even more damage. Like, getting spell DD on here would be really huge. Like 20% spell DD, which is what it would scale to, is kind of crazy. But yeah, I don't know. It's I like the explode. Having, you know, almost 70% chance between the chest and the nebulous feels really good. So I'm keeping it for now. But yeah, you could very easily just swap this out for more damage and do that. It'll be like probably like a 20% more damage boost or something like that. Eventually, you could crop this, either volatile it for higher percent damage, or even just crop the strength away to something else, some other implicit. You know, you can crop the AOE on there for even more explosion size, which would be kind of cool. But yeah. Because obviously the corrupted implicits would get scaled by the increased implicit modifier magnitudes, so you get some big numbers on the corrupt implicits if you do hit one on this. So maybe that's something we do eventually. Yeah, for the belt, this is the Excel Impenetrable Shrine. Got a corruption on it for auras, which has been quite nice. Obviously the regular is just a leather belt, so it gives you flat life normally, so it's pretty primed for corruptions. It's quite nice. I actually didn't hit this myself. I traded this for the corrupted one, so my old uncorrupted one, for someone who was just corrupting a bunch of them. So that was kind of nice. But yeah, I'll get some auras from there. It's kind of nice. And then this is one of the more recent things I crafted. So this is the new shield. So this is a very cool item. This I think I will edit a video on, because I think both the crafting process of this shield was something we worked quite hard on in order to even make this. And yeah, really cool that it hit. So first of all, the base is kind of crazy. This is something I spent a lot of time and effort rolling. So you have the socketed gems have increased reservation efficiency, and then +2 to min endurance and frenzy charge. So if you're not familiar, first of all, that's something that can roll on synth shields. I know not everyone knows that. You can get min charges on these. And also, that's the, like, I think just the straight up rarest mod on shields. They're quite a bit rarer than even max charges. While I was rolling for these 2 minimum charges, I hit every single max charge like 3 times, I think. Yeah, I spent like 6 or 7 mirrors of ultras trying to hit these implicits over a few days. So it was quite a lot of work, but eventually did manage to hit it. I think the base is pretty crazy. Getting min charges is really nice. You don't have to invest in any regeneration. You just get these charges all the time. It just feels really nice. So yeah, very happy with the base. And then also the actual craft itself, I think, is very cool. So yeah, this is tier 1 lightning damage, tier 1% ES, and then the essence mod. So tier 1 lightning damage is extremely low weighting on shields. It's if you're familiar with how rare tier 1 spell damage is on shields, tier 1 lightning damage is like 3 times as rare, I think. Any like tier 1 percent damage. It's quite something. But yeah, I think our craft method worked quite well for it. And then I was working on the snake, and yeah, actually the craft on this, I got very lucky while crafting this, but I think the crafting method is sound. It's basically imprinting the essence mod, and then with strands, it's imprinting the essence mod, imprint regaling over and over again until you add a suffix and keep some strands, and then you go multi-mod, suffix is going to be changed, prefix is going to be changed, reforge lightning, and that gives you like a 1 in 170 or something, I think, to tier 1 lightning. So you have to do that over and over again, and then you re-imprint over and over again. Which obviously that's a lot of work, but in order to hit that mod, I think that is the cheapest and most efficient way of doing that. And then after that, you go and you get the max stress on there. So max stress also very low weighting, very hard mod to hit. You need to actually keep strands on there as well. So the crafting method for that is, and you'll see this in the video as well, but you actually use prefix to suffix beast. So if you use a prefix to suffix beast with prefix going to be changed on there, it will just add a suffix and not delete a prefix, because obviously prefix going to be changed is on there. So you'd craft a prefix on there with multi-mod, and then craft on prefix going to be changed, and then you would beast prefix to suffix over and over again until you hit the max res. This will take a while and isn't very enjoyable. But yeah, it's basically just prefix to suffix and then scour, and then prefix to suffix scour over and over again. And yeah, that can take quite a while. And then after that, you veiled it for the DD. So after this, after you veiled it for the DD, you need to both add the ES mod, and then you also need to add spell crit. So the way we figure this out is that it's actually the most efficient at this point to lock slam both these at once with the strands until you hit one of them, and then finish the last one afterwards. So you don't even craft anything to block or anything. You just slam both prefixes and suffixes at once, and that's how you get the final 2 mods with strands. It's quite the involved craft, but yeah, managed to make this item. I think this shield's crazy. It's very cool. So happy to get this done. Obviously very cool for the character as well. I think the Transcendence model on there is very cool, and yeah, it's a neat item, I think. Then we have some clusters. So this is the first thing I actually went and made some mirror clusters. I actually made 3 of them. So yeah, there are different needs of things on these clusters, which is why I made 3. Obviously, usually you maybe just make 1 and then mirror it over, but yeah, I have 3. So the main part is that I wanted one of them with this. So There's a few mods. Usually I don't bother with mirror clusters. I think mirror clusters are just kind of extremely overrated. Whenever I see someone actually mirroring clusters, it's like the least efficient thing you can spend your mirrors on. But this character is very invested. I'm at the point now where we might as well actually do some, and I haven't actually made any mirror clusters before, so it's kind of fun. But there are some premium mods. Usually, if you just get like 2 crit multi or whatever on the implicits of a cluster jewel and like 5 strength or some res, it's just so low value because the implicits on a cluster jewel, it's not like they get applied to the small passes or anything. That doesn't happen. You just get them once. But there are some premium mods. So mainly the thing you get on these is 2% reduced mana cost of skills. So this is actually quite powerful. This is generic mana cost reduction. And for this build, which needs a lot of mana cost reduction because Spark ends up costing a lot of mana in the current state of the game, self-casting is kind of rough, that 2% is pretty good, getting 2% on all these different jewels. So you can see that on all these different bases, that is one of the things that I have on pretty much all of them, is reduced mana cost. It's also like the rarest mod, I believe, on cluster jewels, or at least one of them. It's probably tied with AoE, I think. But yeah, the reason I have 3 different bases, I need one of them to have this set of mods here. The Chaos Res isn't necessarily required, but I need one with spell damage, leeches, energy shield. This is what I'm getting my leech from now. I used to take leech nodes and the instant leech, but yeah, I ended up dropping that because I get the percent from here, and then I get instant leech sort of from the ES on hit node here. I felt this to be super plenty of leech, especially with the amount of damage this character does now. 0.2% of spell damage when you do a bunch of spell damage is plenty. So it's like actually very, very efficient getting that on a cluster jewel implicit. So that's very nice. And then obviously the mana cost reduction, and then the other ones are more just generically good. These I didn't really need 2, honestly. The reason I wanted 2 other bases here is because I wanted one base with a tier 1 resist and then chaos res, and then I wanted another one with a tier 1 all res roll and a singular res, because I wanted to fix my chaos res, but I didn't want it on all of them because that would be too much. So either you can craft one and then mirror it over and then recraft that item, but it's really annoying crafting these cluster jewels. So I figured might as well have 2 different bases. This also gives me the ability to change things around if I want to. But yeah, so we have this base where I have tier 1 multi and then actually increase AoE and reduce mana cost. So AoE is one of those things that I just went for if I hit it. It is like one of the rarest mods on Synth Implicits. It is very cool though, because it scales explosions and that's fun. And I think this character is, I built a lot of it just to be fun. So yeah, the fact that I actually hit AoE here, it's not something I went for, but it just ended up hitting, and it's kind of sick. So we have AoE on here alongside the multi and the reduced mana cost. So that's pretty cool. And then the other one, which I believe is this one. This is like the ideal implicit I think I would want, is reduced mana cost, AoE, and then proj speed. But yeah, I ended up putting this on the Chaos Res cluster, so we get proj speed on there. I definitely would like proj speed instead of multi on this one as well, but I ended up just settling with this because this base was pretty good. If I could redo things, I would craft these the opposite way around. So I would make this base have Chaos Res and this base have the All Res. So I have slightly, I think I have like 1 more cluster with the All Res setup rather than the Chaos Res. So I would rather have 1 extra cluster with Pro Speed versus the other one, but it's fine. It is what it is. This just ended up being walk ahead first. The crafting process of this is really miserable. Crafting clusters is just awful. Basically, there's no real technique to it. It's just a bunch of slams and alls over and over again and imprints. So it's like, you all spam for the first 2 mods, and then you imprint, regal, and all spam until it hits the 3rd one, and then you're trying to exalt. There's like no finesse to it. It's just brute forcing it until it hits, and it takes forever. So yeah, I didn't really want to recraft anything, and these are just the bases that hit first. So we got this base, and then we got the proj speed AoE base, and you can see I have them mirrored over here. I actually need to mirror them one more time for this one that I just added. So we're gonna put a proj speed one, or I guess I actually could put a Pro Speed one here. It wouldn't be crazy. I do obviously have a bunch of experience rolling jewels from last league where I spent a lot of time vulturing Abyss jewels. But the different thing with vulturing this league is that it's very expensive. So they made beasts. They obviously deleted Kirak missions, right? Which deletes a big source of where all the different fancy beasts came from. But they buffed the drop rate, or whatever, the count rate of all beasts to compensate. However, they didn't buff the drop rate of Vivid Vultures exclusively. So that one's still the same, which means it's a lot rarer now getting Vultures than it used to be, which means the supply is lower, which means the price is higher. Vulture rolling Synth Blizzard right now is very, very prohibitively expensive to a point where it's kind of just unpleasant. I really don't like that change. Making Synth rolling even less approachable is such a bad change, and it makes rolling synth items in this league really miserable, which is why I haven't really done it before now. You can see that the last shield I used, this one, is a 20 qual base because I didn't roll it. So the reason I was using this shield for ages is that I found this base on trade already with these implicits on a 20 qual base. I don't know what the story is there. Like, I don't know how that happened, but I guess maybe someone rolled a 20 qual base for some reason, or maybe it just dropped close to these implicits. But yeah, I just got the base really cheaply off of trade and then just crafted on it because it would save me the vulture cost, because I just didn't want to roll vultures because they're so expensive. But yeah, I just ended up at this point in the league I have enough currency to where felt comfortable doing it, but up until now I just try and avoid it like the plague. But yeah, it's just really rough. Like vultures are, I think right now they're like 6 or 7 div each, which is crazy given it takes hundreds to finish an item. Yeah, I don't know. I really hope they revert that change and maybe fix bestiary in some other ways. But by the sounds of things, maybe they'll just remove vultures entirely. I don't know. Hopefully they don't. I actually think vultures are good for the game in general, but it is what it is. But anyway, and then yeah, this is the other jewel. This is the abyss jewel I showed earlier, where there's avoid being shocked. This is kind of a piece of shit jewel, but I just need the avoid shock and I need the phasing somewhere. The character feels really bad without phasing, and I think that the only ways of getting phasing like efficient enough is either you get it off of an abyss jewel like this, or you get the haste mod on the watch side, which I did for the longest time, which gives you just perma phasing, which is nice. Or you can impossible escape over here, and I believe these nodes right here gives you phasing on kill. Yeah, you also have this nice move speed node here, so you could impossible escape precise technique and grab that, which there's some merit to that maybe, but every jewel slot is an extra inspired learning I could be putting into the character, so I'm really hesitant on giving up jewel slots because of that, because inspired learnings are so sick, basically is the idea. But yeah, that is probably, these are like the 3 ways I managed to figure out how to get phasing, so you need to pick one of these. So if I were to drop this, I would have to do, first of all, solve shock avoid somewhere else, which is very doable, but also get phasing somewhere else, which is tricky. For now, I think this is a decent enough solution for it, but we'll see if I end up keeping this. One thing I've thought about on this character doing is grand spectruming it. So that's one way of going, because you could swap, instead of this essence mod with avoid shock, you could just do the generic avoid ailment essence, which gives you like 30 something percent avoid ailment, and then do the grand spectrums, and there's a grand spectrum that gives you just generic avoid ailment, and if you do 2 of those you get 72%, which is enough to cap you. With the boots, if you have 3 grand spectrums, that would give you 1 flex grand spectrum open in order to do something. So, and obviously you would then be able to give up the storm shroud and this abyss jewel, and that will give you 2 sockets to do that. Unfortunately, of course, you need 3 grand spectrums, so that is again -1 jewel socket, which again is -1 foul point inspired learning, which is why I haven't done that. But yeah, that might be a little bit more efficient. So maybe eventually we can do that. There's also the avenue of not using medium clusters in order to get overwhelming malice. So you can get this on large clusters as well. So what you could do is you can swap this voices out for a large cluster with overwhelming malice and some other good node here, and then just do that. The reason I haven't done that is, again, you lose a jewel slot. So yeah, I just really value the jewel slots really highly. But you would gain some passive points. So basically, going from this setup with a medium cluster to a large passive cluster is that the voices nets you 2 passive points, which is pretty nice. But of course, you are losing a jewel slot. So basically, you can think of that as spending 2 passive points for a jewel slot. Like, would you do that? And clearly I would. I'm taking like literally every 2-point jewel slot I can here. So yeah, I think it's pretty good doing a medium cluster for this. There's also an avenue of using a megalomaniac with overwhelming malice and introspection, and that'll be pretty good. Again, problem is no jewel slot. So yeah, it's that's the whole thing there. That's why I just haven't done that. But yeah, for now I'm doing this, but maybe at some point to look over some stuff. Other sort of wish list things that I've been trying to fit in but just haven't been able to yet. I really would like this armor and energy shield mastery for the recover ES when you take fizz damage. It's really powerful. That mod stacks, gives you crazy recovery from multi hits. I just can't really fit it in again. Everything is so tight on this character. Yeah, basically I want to fit that in. I want to be able to get this caster mastery for the extra spell block. I don't know how to fit it all in with the reservation required and everything. It's all tied up crazily. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm going to keep working on it. Oh yeah, I didn't mention this, but we are using a bunch of rune grafts as well, which are kind of cool. So we have the warp one here, which obviously is very important. I would never drop this on the character because it scales the duration of the shrine buffs, which gives you effectively more shrine buffs. You basically always have like 3 shrine buffs on the character, which is very cool. And also scales like everything else on the character pretty much. It's very, very good. This rune grafter warp, and then also I'm doing rune grafter the fortress right here. Because we are doing Supreme Ostentation now, this becomes very, basically has no downside. You just get 40% increased global defenses, which is very powerful. It's a lot of ES, a lot of armor. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's just a very efficient node there. So, yeah, I'm at a point right now with this character where, like, every point is just crazy efficient. It's so hard to drop something with something else because, like, every point's like 11% damage or like 11% EHP or something. It's like crazy, but yeah, it's pretty tight. But yeah, also, oh yeah, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but yeah, I am taking Divine Shield right now for the extra little bit of recovery there you get from the fizz prevented from hits. It's nice, all the armor, and feels pretty good. Alright, so this is the current state of the POB, so this is sort of what's going on with the character right now. So, yeah, seeing a decent EHP numbers is obviously without any guard skills toggled or anything. 1.6 bill fully buffed. This is like with Vol Haste on, I think. You can just turn that off if you want to. I like keeping this on because I like seeing the peak move speed. But yeah, you can just turn that off and you see those numbers. I'm probably with unpredictability right now. You can pick whatever you want here. Generally, I tend to map mostly with Nova or regular, but you can do whichever one you want. They're all fine for mapping. Technically, single target unpredictability is best, so yeah, you can just do that. Also has the lowest mana cost, which is nice. Spoken of the Nova, actually, has quite a high mana cost. It's kind of tricky to solve. Yeah, things I wanted to fit in, like you can see what I'm talking about with this, like this intensity node. It's like 12% more damage, right? It's really efficient. Like this whole set of nodes, like 3.5 per point, is pretty good. There's also like the crit node here, which is really good because it gives you the +3 level crit support gem mastery, which is another, that's 7%. And these nodes are just really good on their own as well. So it's like another 4% per point or something. Like they're very efficient, but it's just so hard to drop anything. I'm gonna keep working on it. I'm sure there's still plenty of optimizations left to do. You see, I have dropped a little bit of move speed. I actually don't remember what the move speed was in the last setup, but before I did the whole Sin setup, I was close to 700-something%. So I have dropped a little bit here, mostly because I had to drop the enhance. So you can see the difference that an enhanced gem does here. I just had to drop it. I just can't fit it in. That's the problem with the smoke mine setup, is that you need 2 links. So you need to automate detonate mine somewhere. Obviously, I could move it out of this link and then move a bunch of stuff in here, but then I would need another full automation link. So that's another 2 sockets. And it's just so hard fitting sockets in on the characters. So yeah, just not been able to do that. But yeah, eventually I would like to fit this back in, but I just don't know how I would ever do that with the amount of socket pressure this character has. But maybe. But yeah, that obviously would be nice. But I mean, 600%. Look, we're not slow, so we're still plenty good. And then something I forgot to mention. I am using a rational doctor on this setup. That's another thing that the Supreme Ostentation does allow this character, because we have so few attributes right now that balancing the strength in it is actually very easy. So this gives you basically permanent conk ground under you, which gives you enough life regen to fully sustain RF all the time, which is nice. And then also gives you profane ground on crit, which basically just makes it so that you get a bunch of extra crit chance on the enemies, which helps crit cap. I'm a little bit lower than crit cap right now. I actually have intentionally not focused too much on capping crit fully. First of all, I no longer have power charges, so it's a little harder, but this is very easily, like, you can get this by just, I am using precision. This is like a level 2, so I could just be leveling this up and it would very quickly cap your crit out, right? The reason I haven't bothered putting too much investment in there is always the opportunity cost, and also this is a character that walks around like 30 Henner buffs all the time, and there's a bunch of different Henner buffs that just give you a ton of crit. Also, we have shrine buffs, and Diamond Shrine is honestly pretty common as a thing you can hit on the Guardian. If you spend all the effort of manually crit capping beforehand, and you actually put opportunity cost into that, you're missing out on the top end while mapping, because then you don't get any benefits from the Diamond Shrines or the Henner buffs that give you crit. So I figured it'll be a little bit better to just by default be a little bit under crit cap and have the ability of your Diamond Shrine and your Henner buffs crit capping you. I think it makes sense. When thinking about where to allocate your resources in order to get upgrades, I think dropping a bit of crit chance in order to do that, I think, makes some sense, at least to me. But yeah, I'll have a cleaned up version of this in the description for you to look at. You can see obviously right now this is like this pub is like the one I'm working in, so you can see all the different unused items in here. It's like such a fucking mess, and then also like all these different gem links where I just have a million gems because they're just like it's easier to swap that way. And yeah, I'll clean this up for you, don't worry. But yeah, I think that's the state of the character right now. Hopefully I went over everything. I spent so much time putting this together and putting all the optimizations in, and I think it all makes sense. Again, it's not like the most efficient way of spending currency or whatever. Obviously, the investment level of this character is crazy at this point, but I mean, we're 2 months in, and I'm only playing this character. It's sort of a given, right? Given how much I play. But yeah, and you would probably, if you spent this amount of mirrors on something else, maybe you get more out of it or whatever. It's not really like, I never make characters in order to like try and make the most efficient or the highest numbers or anything like that. It's just I just want to try and push the thing I have the furthest. I just want to have fun with it. And I think this is a decent state, at least right now. I'm gonna keep trying to improve it. There's always more room to grow and make it better. I generally have, I think, a different view of when a character is maxed out, and I think this character is very far from it still. I know this is obviously the stuff I find fun in POE. This is the sort of stuff I always do. You've probably been able to tell that from the videos on the channel and the streams and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoy this stuff. So hopefully Hopefully. But yeah, this character in particular, like I mentioned before, is just such a such a jigsaw to pop and put together. You know, a single piece being moved, it has these rippling repercussions on the rest of the character where everything needs to be moved. You know, something like you need to move something into the chest slot because that has more reservation technically than like the helmet or the shield, or maybe you have to like, you know, put it close back in. Then you have to move one or a gem somewhere else, and then you need to like drop some reservation somewhere or get some more reservation somewhere. And yeah, it's it's been a whole thing. This might be the hardest character to copy 1-to-1 from a prop that I've ever made. Like even if you mirror all the pieces or whatever, you still have to do a lot of work, I think, in order to fit everything together, which, you know, could be a plus or a minus, depending on what you like in the game. But yeah. Yeah, that's sort of the ramble video here. Hopefully, hopefully you guys like this stuff. You know, it's just sort of the build diary. 2 months in, I'm gonna keep working on it, gonna keep expanding on it, and maybe we'll have another one of these. Maybe this will be the last one though. I don't know. We'll see. Depends on how much changes, I suppose. Otherwise, you know, we'll do streams and stuff, and you can see it in action there. But yeah, I'm very happy with the state of it right now. But obviously, there are always ways to improve, and I've had a lot of you know, I've learned a lot of things working on this. It's been a while since I made a character so specialized as this one. So, you know, some lessons on like how much of, you know, defenses you need for stuff and how much speed you'd want, and you know, stuff like that, which I haven't really thought of before in that sort of context. So it's been you know, ups and downs and learning processes, but I've had a lot of fun. I'm gonna keep working on it, and yeah, see you guys in more videos. I think we have some crafting stuff lined up, which I promise I will edit at least a couple of. So I definitely want to get out a video on this shield because I was pretty happy with that craft. So yeah, definitely gotta get that out. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. It's been quite the league, and it's gonna keep on being quite the league because we're not done with it yet. All right, thanks everyone.